Hey, man. Read this.
I told you, I don't like horror comics.
Think of it more as a survival manual. There's a number on the back. And pray you never need to call us.
I'll pray I never need to call you.
One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires.
All right, guys. Welcome back to another sweet, exciting episode of Citizen Frame. I know you're all excited because today we're here to talk, we were here to talk Stephen King's Life of Chuck, which we are going to talk about. Don't get me wrong. Now, as you know, listening to us, we have a tendency to be unprofessional. And we have a tendency not to put our titles out in advance because we have a tendency to jump into something else. And we found out like about a week ago or so that this classic Lost Boys is going to be screened here in the local cinema. So we went to see it, of course. And how could we not talk Lost Boys after watching it on the big screen? It's the first time I've seen it on the big screen. Obviously, I've seen it plenty of times. I can watch it 4K anytime I want. But the reason I had to see this movie on the big screen was because the funny story, I think I've told it before on the podcast, where I went to see it in '87 and I was just underage to go see it. And the lady at the ticket booth would not give me a ticket to go see this.
Huh.
But she did allow me to go see Hellraiser.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So never got that one. But so it was nice to see this on the big screen for the first time just last week.
Yeah, it was the same for me. I mean, again, for me, it was a video. When I first watched it as a kid, I had the soundtrack. I loved it. I believe I actually owned it on video at one point as well. Loved it, but had never actually seen it on the big screen until the other night. And it looks great on the big screen. It really does work even more.
You know, let's piggyback on the soundtrack portion of this conversation because I have that in my notes. In the 80s, soundtracks were fucking gold. I mean, gold. They died in the mid 90s, and now it's just scores and stuff. Which, don't get me wrong, I still like those, but you don't get the Kenny Loggins was the go to for the
Yeah.
movie soundtrack. But when musicals died, they pretty much died with Grease. The soundtrack became more about the different artists that would contribute a song to the soundtrack.
Yeah, like
Saturday
the official song for the film. Yeah.
Well, a bunch of official songs for the film, but yeah, one main one. But you'll have the Saturday Night Fever kind of started that after Grease bowed out. But then you had, in the mid 80s, you had Flashdance, Footloose, Top Gun, St. Elmo's Fire, Beverly Hills Cop, and of course, this incredible soundtrack, Lost Boys, which, even though all the soundtracks I've given you are wonderful, this is probably by far the best and holds up the best.
I would agree. Now, in the 90s, and actually, right up to the current day, Tarantino has always done great pumping soundtracks to his films. But yes, the 80s was a real peak time for soundtracks for films, essentially. And there were some great ones, but The Lost Boys, to me, is the greatest of them all.
See, I want to put Tarantino up there on that list because of the fact that his stuff was kind of gimmicky.
It's more eclectic.
Let me finish. I thought it's not an insult. It's clever what he did, but his stuff wasn't going to reach. The soundtracks were just more. I don't know how to. More popular, more Oscar nominated. I mean, all these songs were just, and they're you can't forget them. I can name every song on the soundtrack. I love this soundtrack. Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs is great. Reservoir Dogs is his best soundtrack. Stuck in the Middle, and that did bring back some of the classics, or people never knew they existed before. They don't have the staying power as the 80s soundtrack does.
Well,
They just don't.
Tarantino's soundtracks, they're more a wide range from right across the decades. Sometimes anachronistically using songs. Like, for example, he's using David Bowie in a World War II setting and Glorious Bastards. So that's, that quirky, gimmicky as well.
But you also got to realize there's a
With
difference.
The 80s, they were quintessential 80s.
There's a difference between Tarantino's greatest hits of his favorite songs and songs written specifically for the soundtrack. That's what I'm talking about. Now, Footloose would be a perfect example. You had Footloose, you had Bonnie Tyler, you had other songs written for the soundtrack. This isn't a greatest hits box set of likes and dislikes. This is just written for the soundtrack. That's what I'm talking about.
For the most part, with the Lost Boys, there are some ones in there. There's actually quite a few covers. Actually, there's
but why are you arguing?
I'm not arguing.
It's still made for the soundtrack.
I'm not arguing. I'm discussing.
I know, but
you're looking at an argument, but I'm not arguing.
I'm not.
You fucking are.
Wow. What's with the temper? Wow.
No.
People, I apologize. Wow.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm discussing.
This is a family show.
Right.
What the fuck?
It gets an E-cert. We get an E-certificate every single, basically, edition, due to Ciaran's potty mouth. But, I'm done apologising for him. So, what can you say?
But there's a big difference between songs utilized in the soundtrack. Top Gun, I can't not Take My Breath Away, Danger Zone, Flying with the Boys, the great score by Steve Stevens, all written for score. Yeah, you might get a song from the 80s that's put in there, like, what do you call it? The Righteous Brothers would be on there, maybe.
I'm a Ghost.
Yeah, that was used a couple times. Unchained Melody, whatever it was. I don't give a fuck. But my point is that most of the songs were written for the film, and they don't do those anymore. They died in the 80s.
It could actually be to do with cost cutting. I know James Gunn likes his sort of greatest hits soundtracks on his films, but again, they're not obviously written for the films specifically.
Yeah, but I think James Gunn's relating more toward, but that's good. Shout out Guardians of the Galaxy are fucking great soundtracks. But again, that's more of a nod to what Tarantino did.
Yeah, similar, very similar.
Yeah, rather than what I'm talking about, what these guys did. I mean, Kenny Loggins was in every fucking soundtrack. Caddyshack, I'm All Right. I mean, Danger Zone. Then he had Over the Top, Meet Me Halfway. I think that was Over the Top.
Yeah.
Cobra. Fucking Cobra has got a great soundtrack.
Well, almost any. I mean, even Rocky IV and stuff,
Rocky IV had Survivor.
Hearts on Fire.
Yeah, he had Hearts on Fire by Survivor. He had Robert Tepper. There's no easy way out.
Yeah,
doing that really bad montage scene after Creed's death.
Well, and I would say as well, there were a hell of a lot of 80s power ballads, within those soundtracks. It was a time of big hair, big music, and big blockbuster films.
And then, but there's a flip side to this coin. Some of those songs destroyed a franchise. And it's a good song. We talked about it with Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome when they threw Tina Turner in there. And it's like, what the fuck it's a good song, but what's this doing in a fucking Mad Max?
Where to place? Yeah, exactly.
So it's hit or miss. But maybe you got something there where in the 80s, you had artists creating the song for the movie. And then in the 90s, it became a greatest hits of what the director might like or might envision what the characters might want to listen to. So you got that with Tarantino, and you got that
John Hughes as well.
No, John Hughes, most of his stuff was written.
Well, the St. Elmo's Fire. No, that was Joel Schumacher, wasn't it? Actually, St. Elmo's Fire.
Yeah, that's why I bring this
Who directed this?
Joel Schumacher.
St. Elmo's Fire.
That was David Foster. That was, and St. Elmo's Fire. Names escape me. I love the song. Man in Motion.
Man in Motion, it is, yes.
Yeah.
And it's not actually about nothing to do with the film, even though it's used for the film. I think it's something to do with some disabled sportsman or something who, anyway, that doesn't matter. But yes, it's a very memorable one from that film, St. Elmo's Fire.
But yeah, so there was more, I think there was more care put into the soundtrack in the 80s than there was in the 90s. 90s was just a greatest hits, is where I'm going with this. And which is fine, but I do miss the soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack was so good. I remember when movies coming out, can't wait for the soundtrack. Beverly Hills Cop 2, what a great soundtrack.
The
Shakedown,
Power of Love.
Bob. You had Bob
Well, Back to
Seger.
the
Now,
Future.
and the great thing about soundtracks, you get artists that you like that get nominated and win awards, like Oscars, for instance. I remember seeing
Yep.
Bob Seger nominated for Shakedown. You had Glenn Frey, I believe, was nominated for The Heat Is On, or Axel F was even nominated for Beverly Hills Cop. You had all the way to, I know you hate the song, but I love Bryan Adams and Everything I Do for You. Bryan Adams was nominated for a bunch of awards. He actually became the new Kenny Loggins in the 90s.
What about speaking of the 90s and songs for films, what about that absolutely sort of 10th sort of level of hell that is that Celine Dion one, My Heart Will Go On?
Fuck me. Fuck me. That's the problem with the 90s. You had that one song on the soundtrack. And you had The Bodyguard. I Will Always Love You.
Yes, Whitney Houston.
Fuck.
That's a cover as well, but yes, it was done for that film.
Yeah. Lost Boys is by far the best soundtrack out there. Footloose is pretty close. Footloose is pretty close. But nothing beats In Excess, Jimmy Barnes, Echo and the Bunnymen. We'll get to Tim Capello and his saxophone playing.
Legend.
Roger Daltrey, Lou Graham, and is it Jared McMahon?
Jared McMahon. With Cry Little Sister.
Cry Little Sister. It's a wonderful song. Never really made it big after that, but boy, I'm sure he made his money from it because so many people cover it. It's a beloved song. But what an incredible soundtrack. In fact, the soundtrack is so good that they already had some of the artists signed on. And two of the artists who play a couple songs on the soundtrack are Australian band Jimmy Barnes and the great band In Excess.
Yeah.
And they already had an idea of what they were going to do, put on the soundtrack. And that is the only reason Kiefer Sutherland signed on.
Yes, I read that as well.
Yeah, he went to Australia for a holiday, and he got into Australian bands, like Men at Work and stuff like that. And he really liked those two bands, so it persuaded him to take the part of David. Thank God, because I will put my cards on the table. Kiefer Sutherland steals the movie. He is the movie to me. And
he's the best.
We'll certainly dig a little deeper into it. So that incredibly long intro, we're still going because we got to talk about the man behind the lens. Fuck. Sorry, guys, but it's fucking Lost Boys, so suck it up. Get it? Suck it up? Okay.
Go ahead.
I try.
With your bad puns.
That was a good one. Right up there.
It was all right.
Wow.
It was all right.
Right up there with Christopher Walken.
You still haven't got it with that?
Fucking right. Joel Schumacher. I was always a big fan of Joel Schumacher. He started, kind of really made it big with St. Elmo's Fire. And what I like about Schumacher, he dabbles in everything, especially for do something very dark and very bleak, very Lynch in tone, I would say, which a movie he did called 8mm. Forget About It with Nicolas Cage.
I remember it.
Very ahead of its time. It's a cult classic now. Well, so is this one, so he knows his cult classics. And a movie called Phone Booth, which is really good.
Great. Yeah, Colin Firth, or not Colin Firth, Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, and of course the villain is Kiefer. You got A Time to Kill, Flatliners. Obviously likes to work with Kiefer. He's in both of those. Yep. But the sad thing is, I list you some great films, and he's got more to his credit. Sadly, he's remembered for the bad ones, which is Batman and Robin and Batman Forever.
Batman Forever isn't too bad, but
it's terrible.
Totally, it's a world away from the Burton ones that came before. But Batman and Robin is ridiculous. It's almost so bad it's actually good. If you enjoy really bad puns from Arnie, and almost as bad as Kieran's puns, but not that bad. Bad puns from Arnie and Uma Thurman in it. We'll have to do it at some point.
Isn't Batman and Robin the one with Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, it is Arnie. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. I thought you said Batman Forever.
No, Batman. Well, Batman Forever for me isn't too bad. That's the one with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah. No, Clooney's Batman and Robin. Val Kilmer's Batman Forever.
Who gives a fuck? They're terrible. We're terrible. We're absolutely terrible. But anyways, Richard Donner was going to direct, but he just got done a shitload of great films, including ended with The Goonies, and then he waited, but delayed as films do, production got delayed, and he had to leave, stayed on as producer, and he went on to do Lethal Weapon, thank God. But Mary Lampert, we've talked about in this podcast before, who directed The Great Pet Cemetery, and then we talked about her just fading and doing Hallmark movies now. Not to take that away from her career, careers change and they go in different directions. But Mary Lampert was the original director on this.
That's right.
And she walked away for creative differences, which is too bad because, I'd like to see her take. But things happen for a reason. And quite frankly, I don't want to see anyone else behind the chair besides Joel Schumacher because this is a fucking classic.
Well, it would be, no matter who could have been director, it doesn't matter now because it didn't happen, but essentially it would have been a very different film from what we got. But, it's a moot point because, we love what we did get.
This is written by, we mentioned him before, Jeffrey Boehm. I want to give him a shout out. Died way too early at a young age. He went on in the 80s, just alone. Dead Zone, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2 and 3, and the underrated Phantom. Pretty impressive. Taken away too soon. I'd love to see what he could have done more of.
Yeah.
The movie was $8 million in budget. It made $32 million. Did okay, but it was the soundtrack that catapulted this film. And again, a lot of other films, soundtracks help them, and it maintained a little longevity. But this, by far, is one of the biggest. Again, 80s paraded a shitload of these cult hits, and this, by far, is the big one. 80s has given us Blade Runner, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, and this fucking film, and they're all cult hits. And it is amazing what the mentality was of people not going to cinema at that time to see it, and what their mindset is now to what these films.
Well, obviously, nostalgia is a big factor as well. That's not taken away from the quality of the film or the quality of films in the 80s. However, there is very much, we've even discussed it on the podcast, a tonal change and more of the studios taken over in the 80s from certainly the 70s, for example. But there are some real standouts that are really memorable. And yes, nostalgia is a big thing, especially for people of Gen X, the generation we belong to. So, but at the same time, so many of these sort of nostalgic favourites for our generation do stand on their own two legs as well. And The Lost Boys is one of them, in my opinion.
All right. We're going to find out why as we jump into this, finally, 20 minutes later. But there's a method to our madness, people. Sometimes it's the big picture. We talk about the big picture when it comes to films. You're welcome.
We cover all bases.
All right. We got our boy Kiefer Sutherland as David, Corey Haim as Sam, Jason Patrick as Michael, Jamie Gertz as Star, Diane Wiest as Lucy, Edward Herman as Max, Bernard Hughes, Scene Stealer plays Grandpa, Corey Feldman as Edgar, Jameson Newlander as Alan, both known as the Frog Brothers. Of course, a little Alex Winter there, who plays Marco. And then we got Laddie, Dwayne, and Paul, who wrap up the rest of the characters.
What's the point of Laddie here? Seriously. Laddie.
I think we got Laddie because Laddie's the reason why Star doesn't want to turn.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I maybe there were more scenes with him, or maybe more scenes with him written, even not even so much cut in terms of the script, but he has a kind of sort of shoehorned in character who has. I don't
think he's shoe in. In fact, they have a scene I have in my notes where the mom comes home. She's pissed off because something will happen with dinner. We'll get to it, I'm sure, and somebody spilt milk. And when she picks up the milk carton, after arguing with the kids, she puts the milk carton in. And back in the 80s and the 70s in the States, milk carton would always have a feature of missing child.
Yeah.
Well, they show that. She puts the milk carton down. We see Laddie missing and his real name and the child's real name on the milk carton. So that is why one of the reasons he's in it. They kind of show that nobody's safe. Kidnapping was a big thing. Sad to say that, but it was and still is, sadly. But back then, the stuff that was going on, and so I think it was to show that nobody was safe.
Yeah, I also would say, just going back to songs and pop songs, in the early 90s, I remember a really good sort of rock song by a band called Soul Asylum called Runaway Train, and it was about runaway kids, essentially, you know, the kids on the back of milk cartons, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yep. So, but I thought you were going to say something completely.
Did I distract you there?
No, it's just you just come out of. I'm giving you the rhyme and reason why Laddie's probably putting this film. And you bring up fucking Soul Asylum.
Well,
Runaway Train.
Did you know that
don't do it.
Back whenever Keith Sutherland was on holiday in Australia,
no, he wasn't. Fuck off.
He tried to get a part on Neighbours, but they wouldn't have him because the standards were too high on Neighbours. Nobody's joking, obviously.
Why do I do this podcast? But I can see why Laddie's there, and then you add the fact of it's the reason why she's there to protect the child. She doesn't want the child to turn, so she can't turn, so she's got to protect both of them, and she sees Mike as an out, and that's why I think the kid's in there. And I'm okay with it. Usually you're right. If you put a kid in the movie for no fucking reason, I'm gonna be pissed. But you needed it. Okay. I'm going with it.
Now, I would say just on the subject of the two of them, Star and Laddie, that apparently Michael, the reason they got Michael on board, because Michael was supposed to be originally for David, he was supposed to be their first kill, but they couldn't go through with it. Star and Laddie. No, I've read up on that. Apparently
no. They kind of play on that, don't they?
To a certain extent, yes. Yeah, but it's not.
I almost think the love scene, which I don't like, the love scene they have is, I thought the whole thing was to bait him, and then instead of it being a love scene, it was the bait scene.
Well, apparently, whenever they first meet, basically Michael at the fairground, and, you know, they do the motorbike chase and all this here sort of thing. Apparently the original intention of David was for Michael to be Star and Laddie's first victim, to turn them into full vampires.
Oh, okay.
But it didn't pan out like that.
I like the version we got then, if that's the truth.
It works better in terms of the film overall.
Yeah. So we're here in the fictional town of Santa Carla, which is based on the real town of Santa Cruz and filmed in Santa Cruz. Santa's, it's kind of neat. Santa Cruz means Holy Cross in Spanish.
Yeah, I've been in it.
We've all been there. The famous boardwalk still there. But yeah, there you go. All right, so there's a bunch of stuff we want to talk about here. I like the introduction. I like the introduction of everybody, really, to be honest with you. It's quick. The movie's an hour and 37 minutes, 7 minutes with credits, so it's about an hour and a half, maybe a little less. And you're introduced to pretty much the main characters, the vampires, right away, pretty much. But what I do like about it, they have the great song "Cry Little Sister" playing, and we're introduced to the boardwalk at night, right? Where in the beginning, when we're introduced to Santa Cruz during the day, it's kind of people are strange, a little more bubbly and fun. But at night, we get to a darker song about "Cry Little Sister," and you're introduced to Dave and the gang, and they're seeing that the cops kicking them out. You guys aren't supposed to be here. You're troublemakers. Can you go? And the cop gets, pulled away. I like the zoom in camera where they're coming in. You don't see them, and then he's pulled away.
It's teasing us.
Yeah, it's very gore free. And I thought about this because usually I like my gore factor, but they don't play on the gore as much. The violence is actually more when the vampires get it.
It's suggested more. And apart from that, yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I think that they pull away on, is it really them? I know, we all know that they are going to be the vampires or the Lost Boys, but we don't really know it's them doing the attack until they try to make Michael feed. And so I do like that kind of, I don't think it's deliberate. It's not supposed to be a misdirect, but it's more of a what if. And especially the film plays a lot like a comic book. And obviously comics have a big play in this movie, and especially with the Frog Brothers, who run a comic book shop. So I think that's kind of where they're going with the little subtleties. The Warriors did this. The Warriors is famous for doing it, and
Yeah.
we'll be getting the Warriors soon again. But the initial concept, Walter Hill says, the Warriors is so dark and technically disturbing that we wanted to play up more of a comic book style, so people wouldn't take it too seriously and kind of know where they were going with it. And actually, the director's cut is told through a comic book's point of view,
Yeah.
which is wonderful, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it. Some people don't like it because it takes away from the graininess of the original film, and I can understand that, but you should check it out. But that's where I'm going with this. I think and by not letting us see the vampires, it also, for practical reasons, cuts back on the budget.
The only real gore we get, apart from the vampires themselves getting killed, is the beach attack on the surf Nazis. You know, where there's quite a bit of gore, but apart from that, this is quite. I remember this being slightly disappointed as a kid that this was only a 15 certificate, but the movie overall made up for it. But yeah, this was a 15 certificate back in the day in the UK, which was, for a horror film, was pretty much unheard of. They were usually just slapped with 18 certificates straight away.
Yeah, this would never. I mean, it was R-rated in the States in the mid '80s. But I'll tell you what, even when I see this now, it'd probably be a soft PG-13. There's no swearing. There's no. I mean, it's vampire violence. If you see anything,
Yeah,
there's no graphic sex. There's nothing that would make this a heavy R. And you know what's funny? I would probably go, "Oh man, there's not enough gore and stuff." But you can say the same thing about a film that came out a year before this called Fright Night. Fright Night got an R. Now, Fright Night deals with a little tougher topic.
I love Fright Night.
I think the only reason I think Fright Night will stay with an R is because there's the hooker scene where he undresses her, and he's voyeuring. He's watching from across the way, so you see her topless. There is the erotic scene where technically he's tempting a minor in the dance club scene.
Yeah,
and you've got there's
more gore.
Evil Ed. No, I don't think there's more gore in that in Fright Night. It's all vampire gore. So actually, I think that's why that kind of stays with an R, because the adult themes in it. The
Lost Boys is essentially and very intentionally a teenage horror film. And again, that's not me having a dig at it or whatever, but in terms of tone and all the rest, the cast, it's very much focused for the teen audience, and that's okay.
Let's talk about Sam's outfits. Fuck me. He's a teenage culture club. Nobody now in the 80s, we wore some pastel colors, and I had my big fucking shoulder pads.
Did you? Of what?
Yeah.
Here, I want to see photos.
I remember. True story. I remember Miami Vice was all the rage, right?
Yep.
And we were staying in Bestbrook for the summer.
Right. I know it well.
For our summer. And we went to church, and I had my fucking white jacket, my pink shirt.
I would pay good money
and
to
my
see
jeans
that.
on. And I was walking in thinking I was all badass, going to church looking like Don Johnson. And everyone, I think, was just pointing at me. Who's the fucking idiot?
I would pay serious good money to see that, or photos of it.
I remember
knowing Bestbrook in the 80s, because my family's from Bestbrook as well. You know, I would, yes, I can well imagine you waltzing in with fucking shoulder pads, trying to look like Don Johnson. Yeah, that would be comedy gold.
Let me trying. I look good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's not what they say in Bestbrook.
Yeah, I was
still talking about it to this day.
I was definitely a fish out of water there.
Shit.
But the 80s were about that, you know, the feathered hair and
over the top,
the hairspray hair and all that crap. But yeah, Sam's a little out there with his clothing. Well, and there's a whole Joel Schumacher was always openly gay. Nothing wrong with that at all. You can see it in a lot of his his stylings, and there's a lot of things going around about the Rob Lowe poster and stuff like that. And he says, no, the Rob Lowe poster was innocent. The only reason I put that there was because he was hot from St. Elmo's Fire. And I just directed St. Elmo's Fire. So I put that in there.
Right.
But then there's just the way
Well,
he's got a childlike demeanor. He's got an earring that's questionable and all these different
yeah,
things.
I would say, I mean, I would never in a million years have caught this, watching this as a kid myself, but watching it this time as an adult, for me, it was pretty clear that Sam is coded as gay, as being gay. Well, you know, although you're saying that Schumacher has denied the Rob Lowe poster, but
No, he never
the-
denied it. He
well,
just
the
says
posters,
the only
let's
reason the
just say
Rob
that,
poster was there, I got one, and it was a nod to me directing him in St. Elmo's Fire.
it's Rob Lowe semi-naked on a poster on a closet. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. What the fuck? You know? Also, the way Sam sort of sings in the bath and all is quite sort of camp, and you know,
I
I
sing
don't
in the
know.
bath all the time.
I was going to say I'd pay good money to see that, but actually, no, I'll give that a pass. You know? But no, for me, quite clearly, Sam is, you know, I think he's a gay character, but you know what? So what?
I don't even care because I actually
exactly.
like the character and the way he's portrayed. And there's a nice scene near the end where things flip a bit, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, we introduced the whole boardwalk, and you've got, you know, all oiled up Tim Capello playing the sax. God love him, man. He's a fitness instructor, this guy, and he's made a fortune off this song. Good for him. Good on
And you know what? I've always really liked the song. I think it's a cracking song. And I used to play it on my radio show when I had one before it was censored. But no, it's a cracking song. And you know what? Good on him. I think people more sort of taking the piss out of his look where he's like completely oiled up. Like, you can get more oiled up, you know, in the ponytail and the top off. And it's pure 80s. You know, if ever there was a pure 80s sort of moment or look, that's it. You know?
You know, you're in an '80s film when you're watching The Lost Boys.
Exactly.
By just everything, the clothing. Max owns a video store. You've got the Frog Brothers who are acting like Rambo and Chuck Norris. You've got comic books, which was huge in the '80s.
Well, not just the 80s, yeah.
You just piled it on thick, but did it so well. And the great thing about it, he didn't just throw in all this 80s crap just to say it's the 80s. He did it, but everything has a rhyme and reason. The video store, the comic book store does come into play because this is where we meet the Frog Brothers, and they give them Destroy All Vampires, the comic book.
I love that. I love the fact that they're actually they're using the old EC comics, the type of comics, as basically survival guides. You know, which is just fantastic to me. I remember reading about a story one time, which sort of ties into this, about during the whole controversy in the UK in the 1950s about those types of comics. There was this really tough housing estate in Glasgow where there was an actual real life murder. Which caused a bit of an outcry. But some sort of kid who was reading these comics told all the rest of the kids in the estate that it was vampires that did it. So all of the kids congregated in this housing estate, armed to the teeth with like crosses and sort of things like, you know, knives, you know, big knives and all sorts. And it was a huge controversy at that time. And I think that it because of it, it resulted in a lot of censorship of these types of comics, these horror comics. So it was. So I love that, you know, this is all part of the Lost Boys as well.
You have the initiation I like with, like you said in the beginning, Star was meant to lure him. You think she's attracted. I get that she's attracted to him, and he'd be a savior for her. But initially, It was written for her to seduce him and then kill him.
Yeah,
which could play both ways, really, the way the opening scene goes. But she gets him. They're doing the bike race. And the bike race is very, very Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean, hands down. And I just love this whole sequence when they disappear into the fog and he's getting lost in the shuffle. He almost goes off the cliff. He goes off the cliff. He almost goes off the cliff. And he gets off the bike and he punches David, and he goes, "No, just you, only you," meaning I'm going to take you, you know, just you and I. and the grin that's on David's face, because right there he knows,
He's got him.
he's got him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about this as well. I mean, essentially, while I do love this film myself, there essentially it is a film full of teen melodrama, but it all comes together so well with the visuals and all of the rest, and a great script and the performances and look and stuff. But yes, yeah, this is a great scene, with the initiation, then to get him into the vampire lure.
Yeah, actually, I would never say teen melodrama. I can't.
There is a bit.
I can't. I won't, because back then
big
you
bit.
really you wouldn't. Let me finish, please.
Go ahead. I'm waiting. I'll wait.
Wow.
With bated breath. Go ahead.
Fucking better. It's the longest fucking podcast ever.
Yeah.
Because you had the teen dramas, kind of like, Breakfast Club, perfect example, come out at the same time. Ferris Bueller. But when I think teen melodrama, I think not Melrose Place. I think 90210, and I think Dawson's Creek. This is not that, and that's kind of what you're saying. And piggyback on what you're saying, what you're comparing this now to Twilight, and Twilight. Oh yeah, let me finish. Is a teen melodrama that is hands down glowing vampires and fucking glow dust, where the fuck they got going on there. And they took fucking 400-600 movies to get that whole story told. These guys had to get in and out. They shot it in 21 days. I don't think it's a teen melodrama at all. They have to play with that, because technically there's a scene coming up when David cries, where they're teens themselves. They're called the Lost Boys because they're based on the Peter Pan characters.
Yeah, they're boys. They're literally boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But teen melodrama is terrible. And those shows and movies are teen melodrama. I wouldn't say Lost Boys is teen melodrama.
Well, my argument would be more that it is teen melodrama for me, but it is unlike Twilight. I'd be honest with you, I haven't seen a Twilight film, so but things like Beverly Hills 90210 that I have seen that you're talking about, I could comment more on. So I do know what you mean by teen melodrama, but here it's teen melodrama, but with vampires, and really well written and a really good delivery.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I'm not like, but you got to peel the layers here. Like, we got the scene where the famous scene with the maggots and worms, right? And they're playing with him a little bit and make him drink the blood. But then Cry Little Sister, which is often played in this film, people don't realize it was written for the film. And the whole point of that song, it's a metaphor for someone who's innocent being drawn.
Losing their innocence.
Yeah, or being brought into a potentially dangerous group. And that's what the song's about. You don't get that from 90210. And I don't get that from Twilight. I don't, and that's why I think it distances itself. I'm not saying you're not there in the ballpark, but it distances itself from being considered a teen melodrama.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a teen melodrama in the classic sense, but there are certain elements there that they tweak and which really work in its favor. Can I just say as well that one thing that really works and lands practically every time here are the jokes, the comedy.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, there's not one time I rolled my eyes.
No, exactly. All of the jokes land, and some of them land very, very well.
In the theater, it's perfectly timed. The minute Tim Capello picked up that sax, the whole audience was laughing.
Well, that's more unintentional comedy, but I'm talking more about the intentional.
No, but I know.
And stuff.
I'm saying they went with it. Anytime the Frog Brothers would show up, someone would snicker. No, and everyone always laughed at the right lines, especially the dinner scene. I love the dinner scene.
Oh, that's it. That's great.
And so, let's jump into it. I love the scene where Michael's finally starting to turn. And a great thing about Michael's character, too, is in the beginning, for like only, 5-10 minutes, you're introduced to him. And he's kind of shy and reserved. But a nice kid.
He's moody and brooding.
But when he's bitten, you can, because he played it so low key and so reserved, that's down to Jason Patric, who I always thought was an underrated actor, but also to Schumacher's direction. The minute he changes, It doesn't have to be massive. Just the shades under him and him be dismissive and quiet to his mom. Boom, he's changed.
Yeah.
You don't need it to be a full on metamorphosis of his
Or a
personality.
big exposition or whatever. Yes, exactly. It's all very subtly handled, and every scene here, actually, it's very tightly edited, and every scene, every line of dialogue has a point, and it forwards the plot the way all films should do, and this is a great example of it.
The piggyback on the whole family dynamic is wonderful. The mother, who played by the wonderful Diane Wiest, I've always liked her. She's so good in this because she's trying to keep her cool. She's so reserved because the father has left them for another woman, and they are trying to adapt to this new change. And she's actually very giving and very.
They're believable as a family unit.
Yeah, and the great thing about that, because she's being a little back office from her kids, she's kind of letting them marinate in the environment.
You can see her frustrations where she's trying to, at the same time, have her own life and move on from, the breakup with her husband and get a new potential partner and stuff, but also she's duty bound to her sons, who in any other scenario would be behaving like complete dicks, but actually they're telling the truth.
But what I'm saying is she's giving him the breathing room.
Yeah.
That two teenage boys need after what they went through with their father. So that's why this story with Michael works, and the drama that Sam brings to the mom with vampires and stuff. And that's why she's kind of like, oh, okay, I'll give you a little space. You're being a little crazy. She doesn't go on full on parent mode with them because of what they already went through. She's giving them
a good mother.
She's giving them benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, she's a very good mother, and she's probably the most, certainly at our age now, she's probably the most likable and relatable character. You can see her frustrations, but she's having to bite her tongue, and a lot of the time and stuff, and very well played by Diane Wiest.
The scene where Michael opens the door and Max is coming over for dinner, and this should have been a tell right away. I don't remember the first time seeing it. Did I catch it? But I should have known right away Max was the lead vampire.
He invites him in.
Yeah, because he asked him to. He goes, well, you're the man of the house. You got to invite me in. Right there, we should have known right away.
I think the first time I watched it, I did think he was a vampire because it was running with the Frog Brothers and Sam. But then whenever after the dinner party scene, you think I think I fell for it. I was just a kid, where it's basically, then I thought, oh, he's not really a vampire, but then it's like the double bluff where actually he is. Yeah,
they did that because I think when he passes the dinner scene, you realize, oh, okay, maybe that was just a red herring they threw in for us.
But what's a really good touch at the dinner party scene, where they hold the mirror up to his face and he actually screams. The reason being, he hasn't seen his reflection in years.
Yeah, I caught that myself, and I thought that's a nice touch. Mm-hmm. But now people watching multiple viewings might have caught that, and if you caught that in your first initial viewing, you might have figured it out. But I didn't, because I don't think I did either. You do. The one thing we all know is if you invite a vampire in, they become powerless.
It's like the devil. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's full. So the whole, the garlic and the water. The Frog Brothers are very funny in this. Corey Feldman.
I love the brilliant. I love the way a lot of the characters are named after well-known names in vampire lore. Like Max is probably named after Max Schreck, and also the Frog Brothers named after Edgar Allan Poe. Not really vampire lore, but obviously Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And also Lucy, named after, Lucy from Dracula and stuff. So it's all pretty cool.
When we finally realize that Michael and the gang, David and the gang are baddies, is when we see the surfer Nazis get it. The surf punk Nazis. Only flaw I had with it was, now don't get me wrong, this is where you full on violence. Ward, we just saw them flying away. You didn't see who was flying away, but you saw no carnage. This is the first time you see carnage and biting their heads and skulls and blood flying out. It's awesome. And Michael
Oh yeah.
freaks out, and it's very well done, and it's not over the top. You see what they look like with as a vampire. It's kind of cool. Nothing too over the top, and it's a nice scene. But why did it have to be surf and punk Nazis? That's what it confused me a bit. I think it should have been like an innocent couple. Now we did see the thieves who stole from the comic book; they got it, and we saw the security guard, the cop who kicked them out, being hard ass with them. So we can kind of get, But you almost wanted to see almost that darker. It would have made this scene a little more darker if they were just beachgoers,
Well, I
rather
think
than
it works.
once you make them Nazi punks, it's like, well, they deserve it.
Well, no, I think it's really to highlight that because this gang are in it briefly, they're sort of glimpsed at earlier on, on the boardwalk. So I think it's basically, they're sort of set up as quite badasses. So I mean, whenever the vampires sort of go at them, they're complete pussies. So it's really sort of setting up for me anyway how badass David's gang really is, whereas these other badass gang, they don't stand a chance against them.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
So near the finale, Star asks, can she come up to the house? Can she come up? She's looking down the window. Michael says no, but she comes in. Is it because she's not a full vampire yet? She can come in?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware. We never actually see her or No, we see Laddie. I'm sort of slightly turned.
What are you talking about? He turns, and it's the best line in the film.
But Star never turns.
He's like, holy shit, it's the attack of any monster.
Yeah, that's right. But
line.
no, but Star, we never see a vampiric Star.
No. What surprises me, when the Frog Brothers were going after Maddie, you figure if she's protecting him, she would have turned to protect him like Michael did to protect Sam.
Yeah.
So yeah, they should have done that. Little continuity of their issues. But when Sam goes to, they're gonna finally have a showdown. Well, first before they do that, they're gonna he's gonna go to his mom for help one last time, and mom's like, Sam, you're losing it, blah blah blah, which rightfully so, and he finally says, I don't care about Max. To hell with Max. He finally loses his temper. He's not a kid who's scared. He's not this smart ass. He finally talks down to his mother. And right there, that something serious is about to finally go down. The mother doesn't take it that way. She takes it, get out of my sight. You're done. Go home. But it's a nice little arc for our boy Sam.
He becomes a man. He stands up to the mother. Yeah.
But the mother didn't deserve it, but he had no choice.
Yeah.
She wasn't listening to him. And it does play well where, let's say you and I were doing this, we're in this age, and we're in the same situation. People would think, what the fuck is wrong with you? But it's great. And then I love the scene when they go to their lair, and they only could take one out, and they take Marco. And every vampire dies differently. That's supposedly how it works.
And also in the order that the Frog Brothers predict. Like a bit of foreshadowing.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch it.
Mm-hmm. But like to say things like someone will explode, all that sort of thing.
Oh, you're talking about the deaths, not the actual vampire names.
No. It's more about the way they say that it's about the deaths themselves.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant. Okay. But yeah, so when Marco gets it, he's just full of goo and it's pouring out of him. And it's a nice death. He's screaming in pain, and they get away. But there's a shot where David comes in barely into the light because he can't go into the light.
Yep.
He's kind of smiling, but he's crying.
Yeah. Yep. It's brilliantly played by Kiefer.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, is he crying because he's angry as fuck and now he gets to go kill all these people? Or is he crying because that was my brother?
Well, apparently,
I'm conflicted.
Apparently, in reality, it was neither, because I read up on this, and the reason for it, in reality, is that there was a problem with Kiefer's contact lenses, and they were hurting him, and that's why he's crying. But they kept it in because it obviously adds to the power and the emotion of the scene. So, take what you want out of it in terms of the story itself, but in reality, apparently it was down to Kiefer's contact lenses hurting him.
Well, I don't want to go with that. I want to go with that. He's upset because you attacked one of my own.
Well, that's what before I read up on that. That's what I took out of it. And for me, it was more to do with he's crying because he's so angry and so enraged.
Yeah, I think it's because you take one of my own. No one's done that before.
Furious.
So he's going through these emotions because he's never had to deal with a death in one of his family.
He's also a kid as well. You know?
Exactly. He's a child himself.
He's a teenager. Yeah.
Well, now the last 15 minutes. I fucking love the last 15 minutes. We won't go into details. We all know what happens, but the whole thing is so fun. And again, no bad effects. It was all fun. They did what they can do, and what they work with. Nice little suspense shot where they have to go get Nanook. He's kind of guarding the gate, and they're flying in. We don't see them flying in. We just see it from the cameras coming in, and it's very, very fun and very intense. And I just love the whole death. It's so fun. When the vampire goes, garlic doesn't work, but holy water does. And his death's awesome. You had death by stereo, one of the famous lines.
And then the final showdown with David and Michael flying in the air.
Yeah.
Where Michael goes badass and goes vampire.
Now, the only problem I had was I think David would have won this. Because, he's full-on vampire.
He should have won.
But when he throws him under the deer antlers, or the antelope antlers, whatever it was, there was a fan theory that, that wouldn't have killed him. Yeah. So, for years, people wanted a sequel. And Kiva said, people said this to me all the time. It would have been nice to have a twist if you were actually the lead vampire or something. But either way, technically, he wouldn't have died.
Yeah. Well, apparently, in the pretty awful sequel, The Lost Boys, The Tribe, we'll see, apparently there is a tie-in, either comic book or novelization, that says that essentially, it's some spin-off media anyway, that says that basically David does survive this, and actually the lead vampire in the second one was actually groomed by David. So
yeah, because the second one is Kiefer Sutherland's brother.
Yes, he plays him. Yes, that's right.
Angus Sutherland.
Yes.
Terrible. We're not plugging that one.
And the third one's not the worst, but
Kiefer, you could have went, listen, I'll try to get you apart in 24. I'll try to get you in Young Guns 3, but please don't do this fucking movie.
Don't replace me, please.
Terrible. Don't worry, Kiefer. No one replaced you, buddy.
Not even your brother. But the third one's not the worst.
Okay,
but
we're not
it's
talking
pretty
about
crap
those.
As well. But yeah.
But the whole thing is just wonderfully added when Max is revealed to be the head guy, and here comes Grandpa, and again blatantly thrown in our face. He's got it's clever because you think he's using all these stakes to make a fencing, but then he has all these stakes in the back of the truck, the point ends. Pretty much driving off away to go to his date with Mrs. Johnson. And we don't see that this is foreshadowing at all. It's so well done because the grandpa is such aloof.
But he's the smartest character out of them all.
Oh, yeah.
But he plays the fool.
And I love when he just crashes into his own house and he just, impales Max. And what a way to end a film where complete silence. He goes up, grabs, takes a little drink, and he says, the one thing about living in Santa Clara I could never stomach is all the damn vampires.
He knew all along.
And their look on their face, the whole room is only enlightened by the fridge. As he says that line, he closes the fridge. It's such a nice fade into darkness by him closing the fridge. And the look on these three faces, the mom, Sam, and Michael, because they realize that he knew this whole time. And then and then it ends with People Are Strange.
Yeah.
Just fucking.
The grandpa's great in it.
Oh, yeah. Bernard Hughes. But, yeah, great fucking movie.
Yep.
Fuck, classic. That was a long one. Fuck, that was a long podcast. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's worth it.
Yeah. It's everything about it. Anything about this film. I can go watch it right now. It was
the only one that would be ahead of it in terms of fun vampire films for me would be Fright Night, but they're both classics to me.
Fright Night's a great film, but this doesn't. Lost Boys got it right. Fright Night has some issues for me. We need to get to Fright Nights.
Definitely.
The remake of Fright Night would be up here. Because I like the remake better than the original.
Right. We'll argue about that. I think we've talked about this before, actually.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to get to those because we're going to argue. But Lost Boys is the best vampire film ever produced. Ever.
It's up there. It's one of them.
But the other ones, honorable mentions, we'll go to From Dusk Till Dawn, Fright Night, the remake of Fright Night. There's not many out there. You know, it's funny. You see the simple film cost $8 million to make. They didn't throw a bunch of visual effects they couldn't handle at you. They did they worked with what they had to work with. And yet fucking 40 years later, we get Morbius, which, what the fuck?
Awful.
The Twilight films, all these art, they just don't get it
but
right.
Sadly and ironically, it was the Lost Boys that paved the way for more cool, quirky, lovesick teen vampires that we later got in Interview with a Vampire, and also
Interview with Vampires,
Twilight, and all that.
Interview with a Vampire would be on my list. Is pretty cool.
But it was the Lost Boys that paved the way for sexy vampires.
Anne Rice and whoever wrote Twilight. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. This was a little longer. That's on me because I talked for 20 minutes in the beginning. But you know what? It's about the journey, people. It's about the journey. Okay, thank you.
It's about the journey with us.
One time you never interrupt me. The one time you never interrupt me. Fucking hell. All right, guys, give us a shout at CitizenFrame_podcast, of course, on Instagram if you want to give us a shout, and of course, Facebook. The new issue of Phantasmagoria is out today. It is available locally at Forbidden Planet and other stores around the U.S. and so forth, but mainly all over the world on Amazon.
It is indeed. It sure is. And we'll bring Stevens in there, Graham Humphrey, Stephen Vogt, Simon Stransas. So there's a load of big names there.
You said big names. Who are you forgetting? I'm sorry.
Mr. Shoulder Pads in Basebrook.
Right. Rock and roll.
Crockett Steam playing as he walks down the street.
Yeah, I'm walking into church doing communion.
Yeah. But yeah, check out our podcast on Phantasmagoria. Go for it. Ciaran's in both. But don't let that put you off.
All right, guys. Take care. And next up is The Life of Chuck. Take care of yourselves.